Hail and welcome to the first new FlameHisWorld playthrough of 2017, and this one is Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge. I'm the FlameHisWorld, and this one, I can't actually remember if it was the first Mega Man game I played. It was either this or 9. I think I've talked about this before on the channel, but I remember playing this on the 3DS Virtual Console around the same time I played 9 on Xbox Live, like the Xbox Live downloadable version, and I remember not getting on with either of them particularly well. Like, it took me a little while to get used to how Mega Man plays. Bear in mind that I'd grown up on platforms like Sonic, which are like basically baby's first platformer. You could get a lot of leeway with Sonic. You can take damage, you can get knocked about, it really doesn't matter. Whereas Mega Man, like, once you've got used to how Mega Man plays, Mega Man's fairly easy, but going into it blind, going into it not knowing what you're doing, yeah, it takes a little while to sort of adapt. But this game was the first handheld Mega Man game. It's released on the Game Boy, and it's kind of based primarily on Mega Man 1 on the NES. There's also some parts from 2 that we'll see more in the second part than the first one. But this game came out in 1991, and it was actually outsourced from Capcom. Like, it weren't their usual team developing this. I believe the company was called Minakuchi or Engineering or something along them lines. Like, I can't quite pronounce things properly because, in true Let's Player form, I haven't bothered learning how to pronounce the words that I'm going to have to say, because Lord knows commentators don't need to know how to talk. Like, that's not really one of our priorities or anything, but you know, we do what we can. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But according to Inafune, Takeshi Inafune, who has developed quite a bit of infamy now, given the whole Mighty No. 9 shenanigans, but back then he's quite well respected. He said that this game turned out well because the project leader from the organisation they outsourced it to was a huge Mega Man fan. That's his words, huge Mega Man fan, who understood Mega Man games better than some of Capcom's own staff, which is interesting, I guess. But yeah, this game, in terms of gameplay, it's one that it kind of suffers from being a handheld game. It's quite... well, they managed to avoid the screen crunch problem by having very small rooms, and so you can still see everything that you're about to encounter. And I actually respect that they've handled it like this, because, you know, like, the last thing you want is to get bullshit hits by things that you didn't see coming, because that kind of always holds back games when that happens. Like, you think not just, you know, the obvious examples of Sonic Genesis, but also like the Super Mario DX, all the other handheld adaptations of games from consoles, and even just handheld games in general. It's a problem that crops up from time to time. So the fact they managed to avoid that here, that's a respectable design decision. But it is still quite difficult in that there is more limited movement, and some of your jumps and that are quite pixel perfect. And like, I'll say that about screen crunch. This is for the most part. There are still like some offending sections, particularly later on. But for the most part, it plays as a Mega Man game. You know, you shoot your lemons, you just go left and right, and we're at the first boss now. Like, this has got the same structure. I didn't introduce that properly because we were just getting straight into things, but this does have the same structure as the NES games, where you can pick one of the bosses to go after first. This time, though, there's only 4 bosses that you can pick from to start with. That's Elecman, as you see here, Iceman, Fireman and Cutman, all of which are from the NES Mega Man 1. So I guess, like, poor old Bomb Man didn't make the cut. I miss Bomb Man. As useless as he is. But that's the first Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge Robot Master down. Like with the NES games, we do still get the powers, and this item get screen is fucking horrifying. Like, look at this. It's been fucking, like, Addy's outer case taken off, and that's not quite as morbid for a robot. It'd be far more morbid if he was a person, but, you know, still kind of terrifying. But up next is Iceman. as with the NES one, Iceman is weak to Elecman's weapon while being strong against Fireman's weapon, which I believe I've commented on that multiple times, but that kind of seems the wrong way round a bit. Like, you would think that sort of fire melts ice rather than ice beats fire, but I guess they probably had their hands tied with how many Robot Masters they had to start with, and for the Game Boy port didn't really want to change things. But I was saying that some of the weaknesses in the updated version of the PSP game, Mega Man Powered Up, they did sort of change it around, but that was more to accommodate for the fact that they had 2 more Robot Masters in that game. They had Oil Man and Time Man, and I can't remember off the top of my head who's weak to who in that game. That's a game that I only actually played the PSP one once. I had it on rental a while back, because the annoying thing about that is that there's no actual digital download version of Powered Up. Compared to, like, say, Mega Man Maverick Hunter X, which is the PSP remake of Mega Man X, like the Super Nintendo game, which has a digital download version. If you want the PSP version of Mega Man 1, you gotta buy a physical one, which is kind of hard now. Especially given I prefer to play PSP games on the TV using the PS TV, which doesn't actually have a thing for UMD slots. So that means that it's kind of hard to get hold of that game. It's just kind of annoying like that. Also, musically, this does try to adapt the songs from the NES one. Some of them sound a lot more basic, a lot more simple, and I'm not that big a fan of it. Like, I do like the Game Boy sound chip. I think some games on the Game Boy have amazing soundtracks. I think in particular Pokemon games, like Pokemon Gen 2 has a really great soundtrack. So does Super Mario Land. That's a really catchy upbeat soundtrack for the most part, and the other songs that aren't quite so catchy and upbeat work really well as well. But this one, I think it's because I'm so familiar with the more advanced versions, because the NES has a much better sounding sound chip for the most part. I think this just sounds like a weaker alternative. But on to the boss with Iceman. He actually takes the same amount of hits as he did in the NES one, to my recollection. But because it's such a small little arena, it feels like it goes down so much quicker, and he's dead. And naturally, we've got to see Mega Man's insides again, because of course we have. And the Ice Slasher actually sounds like an oddly violent attack. I just thought about that there, seeing it's like slashing you with ice. Now, Fireman, you gonna be okay getting slashed like that? Although saying that about the music, Fireman's theme I think was adapted quite well here, because Fireman's theme, it's so melody driven that like, even hearing it under a different sound chip, it still works really well. We also see these 2 enemies, which like, I think there's different variants of them, but I believe they're only really showing up in 1, this game, and 10. Although saying that, there are other Game Boy Mega Man games that I haven't actually played. There's, I think, 2 through to 5 on the Game Boy, which I should probably play them and have a look at them someday as well. It's one of them little series that I've never really got around to. Well, the reason I went for this game first is this is the game I have experience with, even if this is like the first time I actually beat this game for this recording. Because, like I say, this is much harder than the NES versions of the games, because the NES versions of the games, you can sort of just trial and error your way through, which is kind of the process here, but because there's so many more very specific things, it's easy to kind of get quickly killed, and so you need a lot more patience. But as for Fireman stage is okay. Like, the stages themselves aren't really anything special. They're kind of typical Mega Man fare, but like condensed down to the Game Boy screen. They're not direct adaptations of the levels themselves, yet you still do get the odd little things that you might recognise from the NES ones, like Fireman stage obviously got the lava pits. You get similar kinds of enemies showing up. And like saying Elecman stage at the start, we saw the like zappy things that showed up in the NES version of Elecman stage, and so like it's familiar but not the same, which is probably the best way of doing this, because directly adapting a game would have caused more screen crunch issues than this one here. Yeah, I do still see the odd bit of sprite flicker, like just that menu loading up there, that flickered out on me, like perfect timing just as soon as I bring it up, but like there is some sprite flicker. It's not quite as offensive as the likes of say 2 and 3. Actually, I think Mega Man 1 had a fair bit. I can't quite remember much of Mega Man 1 from a technical perspective, even though I've played it so many times, but like the different times I've played it have been different versions of it. Like I've played the NES one, but I've also played it on the Wily Wars. I've played, like I mentioned, I've played it once on Powered Up. So like I remember a lot about Mega Man 1, like as a concept, but Mega Man 1 in itself, I've only beat that a few times, so yeah. I've beat 2 so many times now. 2 is one of my games that when I just feel like chilling out, because like it's got that pussy difficulty mode, you know, on normal difficulty, so if I feel like just switching my brain off and running through a game, I've got that. I've got a few games like that. I'll play Mega Man 2 or I'll play Sonic Advance 2 because that's a just go fast game. Sometimes I'll play some other stuff like maybe Mario Land, but they're my games that when I just want to like chill for a bit and just play through an easy game, I'll just play through one of them. But like Fireman was actually quite a bit easier here than the NES one, because timing your jumps in the NES one, just so that he doesn't shoot his thing from the floor under you as you jump, that can be a bit difficult, whereas it seemed to go a lot more smoothly here. But anyway, up last is Cutman, and Cutman, probably one of the more memorable Robot Masters, probably because he's one that isn't just a very basic element, although saying that I do remember Electman quite a bit as well because he's got a really useful power. This is probably one of the more difficult stages just because of the enemy placement. Like some of the enemies here, like the things that go along the floor, the things that fall on you, they're the most annoying ones to try and dodge around because you've got to time your jumps properly. As opposed to like the Joe enemies or the Sue enemies where you can just sort of like wail on them until they die. These ones, if you jump in the wrong place, they are going to get you. Like that there. As demonstrated by me in this footage that I recorded last year. But you know, just, it happens. Sometimes timing in LPs is perfect, sometimes not so much. But rooms like this in particular, these are the ones where you want to sort of stop and assess the situation before just diving into it, because otherwise you get the 2 guys from the ceiling just shooting at you while the thing that rolls on the floor hits you, and it just becomes quite difficult to work with if you just dive in without thinking it through. And granted, that's the sort of thing that might put some people off of Mega Man a bit. Like, there is this kind of way with Mega Man games that you sort of learn the game. It's not so much about just running through and adapting on the fly, like say something like Mario or Sonic might be. Although again, both of those games you do still benefit from learning the levels. This is the kind of thing where you are going to struggle if you don't know the game that well. And to some people that's bad design. I can see why people would think that's bad design. But at the same time, it does reward the long-time player. After a while it just becomes so much more satisfying just to run through these levels that you know well. Them enemies are really annoying as well, the ones that spinning in a circle around you. If you run a bit quick, you're getting knocked right the fuck back. But graphically, this game does kind of hold up well. Like, I would have thought Mega Man might have struggled a bit because it's a very simplistic art style as it is. You think simplifying that more could hurt the game, but actually the way they've done the sprite work, the way they've got a lot more emphasis on the outlines, it actually makes all the stuff you need to see pop, and the backgrounds aren't too intrusive either. And they're the problems that can kind of come about from putting games from series that have been established on consoles or more advanced systems onto a simpler system can carry. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was the first part. Join me next time for the final part of Wily's Revenge. See you then.